guys, welcome back. Today I'll be doing my October wrap-up, and I read a lot of really good books this month, lots of good horror and ghost stories. I don't know what the total number is, so I didn't add it up, but you can add it if you want at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First book I have was one I read mostly through September, but finished in October, and I just saved it for this wrap-up. And that was Fell Creatures by Barry Durham. This is the third book in a series that kind of paranormal thrillers. I've read all three of them, really enjoyed them. I did a full review on Fell Creatures, and I'll put a link to it down below on my channel. I gave it 4 stars overall, but if you want to find out more information about it, go ahead and check out that review. Another book I read predominantly through September, but finished in October, was Barry Lyga's third book in the Jasper Dent series, entitled Blood of My Blood. Absolutely love this series. It is just so intense. It's about a young boy named Jasper Dent, who is the son of a serial killer known as Billy Dent. And through most of the series, his father's sort of on the loose. But what we come to learn is Jasper was raised by his father almost to be, following his footsteps, you might say. So a lot of times Jasper hears his father's voice in his head, explaining things, and it's really kind of creepy. He's overall a good kid, but you kind of wonder as the series progresses, is he going to turn into something like his dad? But it's just really, really intense, holds your attention throughout the entire series. It's just amazing. I definitely recommend that one. I gave that one 5 stars. A graphic novel that I read was Bedlam, Volume 1, and this is by Nick Spencer. I also did a full review on this one on my channel, and I'll put a link to that down below. Just a super cool graphic novel about a man named Fillmore Press. He was once known as Rose Madder, a serial killer, and he undergoes some kind of strange procedure that supposedly takes those tendencies away from him, and they perceive that he's possibly okay to be amongst the public under supervision now. And it's just a really interesting series, and like I said, I put a full review down there. You can check it out. I gave this one 3 stars. One of my audiobook selections this month was Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I don't have a copy or physical copy, but to show you my DVD version of it. But it's read by the author, and anytime you can get a Neil Gaiman book read by Neil Gaiman, I definitely recommend you try it out on audio, because he has the most amazing voice, and it just brings that book so much to life. Loved the story, about a young girl named Coraline who moves in with her family, her mom and her dad, to this house which has been divided into flats. Very quirky neighbors, strange things happening, and she ends up discovering a secret door to another world where she finds another mother and another father and all the weird things that go on there. His characters are just so rich and detailed, and the writing, just like I said, brings everything so vividly to mind. And again, the video, of course, is amazing as well, too. But definitely recommend this one. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Moving on to some of my novels that I picked up this month. I love this one. This was one of my favorites. This was Say Her Name by James Dawson. It tells the story of the urban legend Bloody Mary, where you say her name 5 times in front of a candlelit mirror, and you awaken her spirit, and in 5 days she will arrive. And 3 kids... There's Bobby and her best friend Naya and kind of a local boy by the name of Kane all decide or kind of dared into doing this challenge. And they do, and of course, slightly after that, Bobby's in the bathroom taking a shower. When she steps out, she sees the fogged over mirror, and kind of written in the fog is the words 5 days. And thus begins a countdown to Mary's arrival. It's just such an intense, creepy book. I loved every minute of it. Definitely recommend it. Lots of twists and turns right up to the very end. I really recommend this one. I give it 5 stars. I also picked up Solstice. This is book 2 in the Devouring series by Simon Holt. This is about a group of beings known as Devourers. They kind of take over human beings and send their spirits into like a nightmare world where they are trapped forever. And it's just such a really great series. Reggie is our main character. She has a younger brother named Henry. And she discovers these beings and is sort of in a battle to save, Henry's soul, her own, and her family's. It's just really, really creepy. Yeah, the first one gave me nightmares. This one was just as intense. No middle book syndrome here. I'm looking forward to continuing this series fairly quickly. Definitely recommend this one, and I gave it 5 stars. One of the adult ghost stories I decided to pick up was The Ghostwriter by John Harwood. Now, this one I actually listened to as an audio version, and then I picked up a physical copy of it from the library just to kind of follow along. But it is the story of a young boy by the name of Gerard Freeman. And when he was pretty young, living with his mother in Australia. She used to tell him of stories of where she grew up, kind of an English manor house known as Staplefield. And he used to love all these stories and stuff. But one day he decides to kind of break open a locked drawer in his mother's bedroom. It's always been locked. He's curious about what's inside. And he uncovers a picture of a woman and a manuscript with the initials VH on it. And when his mom finds out, she's absolutely furious about it. And, you know, the picture, the manuscript disappears, and he never hears about Staplefield ever again. During this time, he also takes up a pen friend by the name of Alice Jessel, and she lives in England, and they share stories back and forth. She's apparently orphaned after a car accident killed both her parents and injured her. She's paralyzed and in a wheelchair, and she doesn't like to talk about her past. She says when she woke up from the accident, her life sort of began anew, and she would basically want to hear more about Gerard and his family and stuff like that. But many years go by, the relationship develops. He wants to someday see her. She kind of keeps pushing the meeting away, saying that she's due to have an operation that she hopes will, you know, cure her paralysis and everything. And so time goes by, and she refers to herself as his invisible lover throughout the correspondence back and forth. When his mother finally passes away, he goes to England to find out more about his mother's past. He uncovers these manuscripts by V.H., who he later learns happens to be his great-grandmother, who wrote ghost stories. And these ghost stories are spread out throughout the book in full. I mean, some are like almost 80 pages long. And those kind of, I wouldn't say dragged, but it kind of pulled me away from the main plot line. But they were intriguing in themselves. And I couldn't wait to kind of get back, though, to what was happening with Gerard as well, and try to figure out how these stories fit in with his overall story. And it's really interesting the way the author manages to tie everything together. It really held my interest. My only concern was I felt the ending was rather abrupt. And I've come to learn that that seems to be something that the author tends to do. It's very, very sudden. I didn't expect it to end as it did. And so abruptly. I thought it'd be a little bit more drawn out. But I did enjoy the writing very much, and I definitely recommend it. Overall, I gave this one 4 stars. After reading The Ghostwriter, I looked into other books by that author, and I came across a book that I'd seen once before at work, and I'd forgotten who had written it. And I remember wanting to read it, and it was The Asylum. And it's got a super cool cover. And anytime anything says Asylum on it, I'm kind of intrigued. And so I went ahead and downloaded the audio version of this, and it's quite good. It's about a young woman by the name of Georgina Ferrars, and she wakes up in an asylum not knowing how she got there. The doctors there explain that she had voluntarily checked in under the name of Lucy Ashton, and she has no memory of this, no memory of who Lucy Ashton is or how she came to be there. She only knows that she was living with her uncle, and he must be worried, and asked them to wire information about where she is and everything. And she's shocked when the reply comes back that from the uncle saying that Georgina is there in-house with him, and this person must be some sort of imposter. So thus begins this whole first part of the book of her trying to prove who she is, and it's really intriguing. The second part deals with a lot of like letters and back family history and genealogy and things like that, but all of it ties together, and it was just really intense. My one thing about books in this sort of, you know, Victorian type era is the way they perceive women as being so fragile that they will just drop dead in a faint at the single drop of blood, or, you know, the shock. Oh, you must have had such a frightening shock. And they're not gonna, like, they're not fragile twigs that will snap. It just gets a little bit monotonous and annoying after a bit. And the character does definitely start out that way, and is that way seemingly through most of the book, or is treated that way, until the end where she sort of becomes a bit more a stronger character, which I liked. But overall, I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the writing, and I gave this one 4 stars. One of my favorite books this month was This House is Haunted by John Boyne. It's an adult gothic thriller set in 1867 and follows Eliza Kane, a young woman who's been taking care of her ailing father. When he passes away, she decides she needs a new start on life and accepts a position as governess over at Gaudlin Hall, a position that she doesn't really know much more information about. She doesn't know who her master will be, who she'll be taking care of, or even how many children. But she sets off on her journey, and weird things kind of happen. When she arrives at the train station, a pair of like invisible hands kind of push her into the path of a train where she could have been killed, except for the chance that a passerby grabs her in time and saves her life. She's collected by Mr. Heckling, the caretaker / groundskeeper of Gaudlin Hall. He's kind of a not friendly man, you might say, kind of untalkative, doesn't supply much information more than what she already knows, that she's just going to be a new governess. She doesn't talk about the master or the parents or anything. And when she does arrive at the hall, she's met by Isabella, who answers the door, and her younger brother Eustace, the 2 children she will be governess to. There doesn't appear to be any other supervision around, adult supervision. And when she does ask about the parents, they don't really say anything, don't supply any information. She goes into town to meet a Mr. Raisin, who's responsible for kind of paying her wages, and he is kind of reticent to meet with her, and again evades the question as much as possible. She does eventually find out about the parents and things like that, but lots of other weird things happen, dangerous things that happen in the hall as she slowly uncovers this mystery about this family and the parents and the children and everything. This is really intense, kind of held my interest throughout the whole book. I like the character of Eliza. She's a very caring young woman, taking care of her father, and now in the wake of all the weird things that happen at this house, she still is very caring and concerned about the children and their safety, even though her life seems to be more in danger than anybody's. And it's just really held my interest all the way to the very twisty, surprising end, and I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend this one, and I gave this one 5 stars. I came across this manga at work. It's called Magical Girl Apocalypse. This is the first volume, and it's by Kentaro Sato. Just had such a weird cover. I just had to check it out, and this volume's kind of bizarre. And it's about a strange little goth girl, this one here, who arrives at a school and just suddenly starts bludgeoning everybody in her path as she chants the word magical. We don't know where she's from, what her purpose is. She doesn't say anything but magical as she slaughters half the school. And the weird thing is, the fallen suddenly rise, following in her footsteps, attacking other people as well, chanting the weird word magical. And we follow a couple of students as they're kind of trying to escape into this world and get away from these former students and friends of theirs. It's just super creepy. The artwork is a bit gruesome at times, and this character is just really bizarre. But I was curious about it. I thought I'd check it out, and I did kind of enjoy it. It's, like I said, it's got some nice artwork. It's geared for older teens, 16 plus, probably because of the gruesomeness inside. But I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this character and finding out more about where she came from. I gave that one 4 stars. I also found another manga at work. I hadn't heard of this one at all until I saw it. And it's Ajin Demi-Human, Volume 1. And that's the artist and author. And I'm not sure how to pronounce these characters' names. But we follow our main character, spelled K-E-I. I'm going to call him Ki. And that's him right there. And there's also his former friend, K-A-I. But anyway, in school, they're talking about demi-humans, apparently beings that have been discovered. There's about 47 in the world, 2 in Japan where the story takes place. And apparently they appear human, but they aren't. They cannot die. And our main character, Ki, isn't really interested in any of that. He's sort of a genius-type student. He's focused on a medical career. He just wants to pay attention to his studies. This other stuff is just sort of fairy tale stuff. He doesn't believe any of it. And he's so focused on looking at some notes and things as he's crossing the street, he doesn't see the truck that comes and blasts right through him, literally killing him. And then he gets up. And it says in the back here, he discovers that he himself is demi-human. There's all this talk about rewards for the capture of these beings and research being done to him. So he is sort of, even though he's tuned out most of it, had heard that and is suddenly panicking, and he takes off as other people start to chase him all over the place. And he ends up meeting up with his friend Kay, who comes to his aid. Now, as the story progresses, we don't really learn anything in this issue in terms of why their friendship broke up, what happened, or why he is now helping him. And we don't really learn too much more about these demi-humans, but it is really intriguing. I'm curious to find out more. And this is just such a wonderfully made volume of manga. It's a bit small, kind of like that Magical Girl Apocalypse. It's a shorter size manga, even shorter than, and this is shorter by most standards. I'll give you an example. That's a typical manga. But it's just really high quality, really well made. The paper itself is really nice and silky and thick. The artwork is really bold. I really like that. Even the text really pops out and everything. Just really enjoyed it. I love the artwork and everything about it. I'm curious to find out more, and I will continue with this one, and I gave it 4 stars. The BookTube Manga Club chose Battle Royale as its October read. This is by Koshun Takami and Masayuki Taguchi. I have the Ultimate Edition, Volume 1, which contains the first 3 volumes of the manga. It's about a 9th grade class, 42 students. There's 21 female and 21 males. They're marooned on an island and forced to kill or be killed in a government-sanctioned televised game called The Program. The rules: that after 3 days, only one student can remain alive or they all die. And they're all handed out different weapons, sent out on their own at different times. And there are like off-limit areas or areas that will become off-limit, that if you remain in that area, you could be killed. And they all have these sort of necklaces, metal necklaces that I think track their life signs and things like that, and it can also be used to kill them. It is an extremely violent manga, and graphic sex scenes and things like that is definitely for mature audiences only. It definitely held my interest. Some of these, sexual scenes and things like that I could have done without. I found them rather disturbing. But the overall story and following these characters and see, like, some are playing the game, some are refusing to play the game. But if someone doesn't die within the specific period of time, they can, the government will step in and take care of things. So at the end of each volume, you have kind of a class picture of all the students, and they get grayed out as they are killed throughout the storyline. I'll try to show you some images of the artwork that aren't too disturbing. But yeah, it is definitely, intriguing to see, basically human nature at its worst, and in some cases at its best, as, some will band together that maybe weren't, friends previously. In some cases, friends will turn on each other. It's just really, really intriguing series. Overall, of the 3 volumes that are within here, I gave all 3 4 stars. Like I said, I had the Ultimate Editions. I have the first 3 volumes. There are 2 more, so there's like a total of 15 total individual manga in the series, and I have only got the first 3. I don't know if I'll even be able to get the last 2 because I've seen them online for like hundreds of dollars for some reason. These, I got the first 3 each for under $20, so I don't know what the difference is between those, if they're just rarer or harder to find, but I'll continue with the series with at least the sets that I have so far. Another manga series I decided to start was Judge, and this is by Yoshiki Tonagi. He's also the manga artist of Doubt, which I reviewed previously on my channel. I'll put a link to that down below. So this is volume 1, and you can also look at it that way, and volume 2. And this is a story. It's about the 7 deadly sins. And what we have is envy, lust, sloth, wrath, gluttony, pride, and greed. And a group of sinners who bear the guilt of the 7 deadly sins has been gathered in an old courthouse to face judgment. To leave this place alive, they must offer up a sacrifice, one of their number, as the trial begins. Who will the gavel fall and rise? So they have like a counter that's up there, a clock. And as it ticks down, once it ticks down, they have to offer up one person each time. And we follow, at the beginning of the story, Hiro is like kind of our main character, and we see the story open up before he's captured and kind of brought to this place. He is in love with his brother's girlfriend. Now, his brother's girlfriend is actually more his age, and it's his older brother. And he kind of lies to his older brother, saying that the girl will meet him later. They're supposed to have a specific time to meet, and he's kind of delaying that meeting because he wants to take that time to tell the girl finally his feelings for her. But what happens is his older brother, because he's now late, he would have been somewhere else if he'd been at the meeting at the time they had originally scheduled, but the delayed meeting caused him to be in a place where he ends up getting killed in an accident. Of course, the brother feels, totally responsible. He bears this guilt. He bears this sin of this lie, this envy that he has, or lust for the, his brother's girlfriend. So now he is trapped in this kind of warehouse type place, kind of like Doubt was, playing this game that he has no choice but to play. Again, it has really dark kind of artwork. They all wake up wearing these strange masks and then are told to kind of reveal themselves. But yeah, it's really intriguing to find out maybe who is doing this, who's controlling this whole trial. Is there someone in their midst that maybe is part of it, kind of like Doubt was, who's the wolf amongst the rabbits? Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I gave this first one 4 stars. The third one seemed a bit slow, a bit more dragged out for me, and that one I only gave 3 stars. Really enjoyed this one. You've probably seen this on YouTube all over the place. It's Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. The book that looks like an IKEA catalog takes place in an Orsk furniture store. All sorts of cool things within this book, a map, an order form in the beginning. There's advertisements through each chapter. You really kind of shouldn't just fly past that or just kind of think it is just, you know, decoration. There's some weird things happening with these ads. I kind of look closer at the cover. I'm sure here's a nice picture, except for with some weird thing going on over here. And then I flipped it over. Of course, everything's super dark, but look at the rug at the bottom. I thought that was super cool the way it turns into like a maze, which kind of plays into the story. There's actually even a maze in here. But the story really, really held my interest. We have our main character, Amy. I remember her name. Oh, gosh. But yeah, she's kind of a disgruntled employee. She's not really happy at her position. She'd like to transfer to a different store. She feels like the manager, I think his name is pronounced Basil, has it out for her and wants to get her fired. So when she's called into the office to meet with him, she feels like that she's going to get the hatchet at that moment. But sitting there is another girl named Ruth Ann, who's like a big favorite. Everybody loves this employee. So she thought, well, there must be something else going on. She comes to learn that he wants the 2 women and him to spend the night at the furniture store to investigate some strange things that have been happening overnight. They find strange stains on the furniture, broken glass, broken furniture, all sorts of weird things. So the organization, everything, kind of wants this research because they think maybe even the security might be responsible. So that's why they don't just have security guards keep a watch on it. They could be, you know, at fault. So what opens up is a nightmare of a night was spent at this furniture store. It was just so intriguing. I like the character Amy. She really, her character really develops, I think, throughout the story, and I won't go into too much more detail of it. It's something I think you just have to kind of explore and enjoy as you go through it. But lots of weird shit happens through here. And it had just a great, great ending. And the way it ends, I'm anticipating another catalog in the future. Yeah, I think it's going to continue. I think it definitely left something open at the end for more stories. So I gave this one 4 stars. And I just read a couple of graphic novels. At the end, I picked up Sweet Tooth in Captivity. This is volume 2 in the series, about a plague that's sort of decimating most of the population. And the children born after this plague sets out are all born with these like animal characteristics. And Gus is our main character. He was taken care of by a man named Jeopard, who kind of, I don't want to go into too much story. I can't say that. That would be a spoiler. But in this particular volume, we find out more about this Jeopard character, his backstory, and a certain secret about Gus. But really, really great series. Love the artwork. It's a bit darker looking in tone and everything, because of the nature of it as well. But yeah, I really enjoy the series. I gave this one 5 stars. And then I picked up a new one, which is Chew by John Layman and Rob Gilroy. This is volume 1, Taster's Choice. And volume 2, which is International Flavor. I'm loving this series. Tony Chew is just a really cool, got a cool look to him too. He is a detective who now works for the FDA. Yes, the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. He's got a weird secret. He's I guess they could pronounce it, symbopathic. He gets psychic impressions from whatever he eats, and it could be just a taste of blood from a murder victim. It could tell him maybe more about this particular victim or how he died. And it's a weird world where chicken is outlawed. The raising, the cooking, the distribution, anything to do with chicken because of the weird avian flu that's going around. So the government has outlawed it, and it's all stories kind of tied in with that as well. But I love the artwork through it, and the character, like I said, him and his partner, I believe his name was John Colby. I always get his name mixed up, but that's kind of his partner. Kind of hard to see right there, but I like their relationship, and his new boss is just awful. He is so mean to Tony. He gives him the worst cases, the worst things that he might have to eat, and I mean really nasty things. Like, oh yeah, we'll give it to Tony, we'll let him do the job, because he really has it in for him. But lots of really great characters and story and artwork throughout this whole thing, and I gave both of these 5 stars, so I can't wait to pick up the next volumes in this one. So that's my October wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And let me know if you read any of these things, what you thought about it. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.